Hey, everybody. Hey. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It is a profound joy to be with you today. There is so much going on. Our hearts continue to go out to the people of Texas as they are battling really just to survive, let alone thrive. But the storms that hit Texas also hit New Mexico. 200 homes have been lost. 200 homes have been lost. And now we have flooding in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. There's flooding all over, really, the southeast, going from, I guess, North Carolina right on over, right on straight through the south on into Texas and straight on through to New Mexico. So please, let's keep everyone in our prayers. And this is where DOGE, this Department of Government Efficiency, where so many government workers were fired, so many government workers who had to detail for the government exactly what it is that they did. And I remember Congressman Jackson said, I've been trying to figure this out. I tried to map this out in my mind. And I said, if you detail as a human being exactly what you've done almost to the second, down to the millisecond of your day, they can feed that into AI and come up with a reasonable facsimile of you. The problem is a machine will never, ever be as good as a human being. And so, well north of 80% of people who would call, 90+% people who would call FEMA in Texas prior to really the day before this disaster, they would get their calls answered by FEMA and they would get their $750 payout and they would have their issues addressed. Well, now the number's down to 15%. We're going to be talking with Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds at 5 o'clock Central Standard Time today to hear more from him because, of course, he's on the ground. He's in the meetings with Governor Abbott. And my goodness, the things that you're finding out, it's stunning what happened there. But then it's also stunning, and people telling you don't believe your lying eyes. You're being told that your Social Security will not be taxed, but it will be. And Medicaid and Medicare severely cut. More than $1 trillion have been taken out of the healthcare system. We have never seen that kind of undoing of the healthcare system since before we had one. And mind you, this was woefully underfunded, woefully underneath the needs of the people. And yet here we are. So many crises are hitting at once. We are getting rollbacks on voting rights. I mean, we're just going to go through so many different issues. And so on July 17th, that's my birthday, everybody. Great things happen on that day. But seriously, it is my birthday. But seriously, on July 17th, all over the country, there will be the John Lewis National Day. It will be the John Lewis National Day of Action so that you can do something and raise your voices about these issues. I know the big, beautiful bill has been signed into law, but there are still things that you can do. We can undo this. Legislatively, this can be undone. The ship of state can be righted, but you're the one who has to make that happen. So as we get into today's conversation, so we can find out how you can get involved on Thursday, I want you to meet me on Blue Sky, Santita Jackson. .bsky.social, santitajackson.bsky.social. I'm also on X at Santita J. There's a Santita Jackson show over there as well. And Facebook.com/Santita Jackson and Friends. When you try to meet me on Santita Jackson, I can't accept you. And Facebook might put you on, but then they're going to kick someone else off. So I have a lot. I mean, oh boy, I've lost. They top you out at, I think, 5,000 people. I'm so honored that so many of you have reached out to me, but you really need to go over to the Santita Jackson and Friends page so no one gets kicked out. Please, because I want to build the community there. And then, of course, here on YouTube, The Santita Jackson Show. So many of you have been joining, and I want to thank you for that. Like and subscribe, and please join Easy Beasy, also known as Paula, and like and share this show today. But first, like and subscribe to the channel. Shalom, Robert. Hey, is it Mir Miller? Hello, please. How are you? I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, or is it Meyer? Let me know. Bernadette, how you doing? Like and share, everybody. Like and share. How many of you will participate in this John Lewis National Day of Action? You need to do that because you are not powerless. Indeed, you're more powerful than you know. Part of the reason that these bills, Attorney Daryl Jones, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, the reason they met so much pushback, Ms. Wanda and Evangelist Jackson, is because you were so outraged. You are so outraged. You see, uh, the country is really quite aghast at the closing of the Epstein files. It has not quieted the discussion, it has amplified it. So, where will this go? And rightly so. Rightly so. So, the question is now, what next? Has it put a crack, not just in President Trump's base, has it really continued to undermine Americans' faith in government? Because really, that's what it comes down to. That's really, really, really what it comes down to. So let's talk about that, everybody. Let's talk about this good day, this good trouble. Good trouble is still with us, everybody, and you've got to create it. Dr. King told us, Attorney Daryl Jones, that unjust laws, you have an obligation to disobey. You can't, slavery was lawful, everybody. It was illegal, it didn't just break a custom, it was illegal for women to vote, illegal for blacks to vote. We did not even grant indigenous people citizenship until past the first decade of the last century. So what's going on in the next hour? We're going to talk about Rosie O'Donnell, because President Trump has threatened to revoke her citizenship. It's not that simple, but the fact that he would even put it out there, something to be said for that. So everybody, please like and share the show. Like and share the show. Let's talk about the issues that you're willing to stand on Thursday. You have the power. Attorney Daryl Jones, people have the power. When we decide to stand up, foolishness sits down. Oh boy, my pastor used to say that. And some variations on that theme. When real adults stand up, foolishness sits down. So you tell me, what is this John Lewis National Day of Action? Why is it on July 17th? And what do you hope to accomplish?
Well, thank you, Santita. Thanks for having us back again. July 17th, we are sponsoring the Transformative Justice Coalition along with we have over 100 partners now working on this, are sponsoring the National Day of Action. And the National Day of Action is to call attention to the acts that Congress has taken, whether it's the big, beautiful bill, as I like to call it, that ends up cutting housing vouchers by 50%, ends up cutting Medicare and Medicaid for people. All these vicious things that are in this big, beautiful bill that they've passed. Well, the National Day of Action is that day where people come together and say no. They let their voices be heard in opposition to what is happening. Congressman John Lewis was considered the conscience of the Congress. And we can only imagine that if this bill had John Lewis had been alive when this bill was introduced, the opposition that he would have posed, how he would have spoken up against these drastic cuts for people. And really what it is a war on the poor for a large part of it. But someone needs to stand up and object. And that's what the National Day of Action is geared around. July 17th is the day that we do it, because July 17th is the day that John Lewis passed away. And when John Lewis passed away and his casket went across the country and it came to Washington, D.C., and was at the Capitol at the Rotunda, on the steps of the Capitol. Barbara Arnwine and I had the opportunity to go, and at his casket, we took a knee, and we pledged and said that we would go forward, that we would pick up the baton of fighting for human rights. We would pick up the baton of fighting for voting rights. We would pick up the baton of being the conscience of the Congress and carry it forward. And that's what we're doing. We're so excited, Santita, because this July 17th, this is not the first time that we've done it. This is our 5th year of doing this National Day of Action in honor of John Lewis. And it is, we have the blessing of the Lewis family to do it, and some of them will be participating in some of the activations. But interestingly, we were anticipating this year, usually we have about 100 activations across the country. Well, this year, with everything that's gone on, we now have over 1,500 activations, closing in very quickly on 1,600 activations in every state in the union. There's not a state in the union where we will not have an activation going on.
So now, what is an activation? Is it a demonstration? What is it? What is an
It
activation?
varies. It varies from state to state. All right, it varies from state to state and activation to activation. Some of the activations will be sign wavings. They're going to be on the overpasses and things, waving signs, indicating that protect our vote, indicating good trouble lives on, indicating sound, make your voice heard, push back. Some activations are going to be rallies where people are rallying together and coming from different areas to rally and have speakers that are present. Some are going to be teach-ins where folks will be having folks come in and talk about the legislation that's out there, being against the big ugly bill, being against other actions that this Congress has taken. The flagship that we have is going to be in Chicago, Illinois, at Daley Plaza.
Now, why
We focused on Chicago for several reasons. One of the key reasons was, part of what's supporting us are the unions. The unions are very strong. Chicago is a very strong union town. There are also a lot of issues regarding immigration and migration. All those are going to be coming up as well during these activations. And so Chicago became point zero and ground zero for part of those reasons. Mayor Brandon Johnson is going to be joining us. We believe that Congressman Jackson, as well as Congresswoman Deli Ramirez, should their session let out in time and they're able to get back to Chicago, are going to be with us. Members from Rainbow Push are going to be with us as well. We know that Nate Rogers, who's the one of the news people on Channel 32 there, Fox 32 in Chicago, is going to be emceeing the event along with me. We know that Becky Pringle, because we're so pleased that the National Educational Association has become a partner on this nationally. Peggy Pringle is going to be there. We have representatives from the American Federation of Teachers that are going to be there. The League of Women Voters. All these folks are coming together. Our core sponsors have been Black Voters Matter, Public Citizen, Declaration for American Democracy. It's a multicultural coalition that has come together nationally. And that's what has activated all of these folks to get into the streets and to get into what we're calling good trouble, as John Lewis has coined that phrase. So, Santita, that's what's happening on July the 17th for people that cannot make it in person to either the flagship or any of the activations that are around the country for whatever reason, whether it's because of some type of inability or travel or whatever it is. We will be broadcasting. We're going to have a national broadcast from Chicago, from Daley Plaza, beginning at 7 p.m. Central Time. From 7 to 8 will be the national broadcast of what's going on at the Daley Plaza across the country. So the National Day of Action is that chance for folks to speak up and to speak out.
But let me ask you this, because activation might be something that people don't quite understand. Are you saying that people can do something, say, on their block?
Absolutely.
That is a demonstration, because I think people would understand that just a little bit. That's just a common movement lingo, right? So, you can be active in your demonstration wherever you are. To whom do you communicate? Before we get into the issues, because I think that there's a lot that people um, are feeling personally impacted by.
Hmm.
And a lot of people have a lot to say, and this is their opportunity. It's an opportunity for everybody to have their say, to have their say. So my question is, with whom should you be in contact, and what, like, give us some recommendations about things that people can do, because in a place like Chicago, this of course is the home of the Democratic machine. And the genius of Mayor Daley's machine is that he had organized Chicago down to the block. Part of the reason you can have um, that these people were very well organized when they pushed Dr. King out of Chicago.
Hmm.
And Reverend was a great organizer who was able to counter the forces that pushed his mentor and boss out of Chicago. Um, Chicago is that kind of town. It's an organizing town. That's why the unions can flourish here. So my question is for you, because it's you've got all kinds of leaders all over town. Because you've got Congressman Danny Davis. I hope you all reach out to him, because before he became a congressman, he was a big community organizer. He still is. He just finally got a job where he was paid for all the work that he was doing for free. Um, what are some of the things that people can do, and who do you contact to say, I want to be involved, or maybe I can't get downtown, um, or maybe I want to organize south, because there's,
Hmm.
or west, or
Hmm.
just outside of Chicago. You know what I'm saying? So,
Absolutely. Yeah, all the information with regards to if you want to be a host of one of the demonstrations or activations or activity that's going on, you can go to goodtroubleliveson.org, goodtroubleliveson.org, and it will lay out everything regarding our Good Trouble Lives On Day of Action, the John Lewis National Day of Action. That's there. It'll talk about how you can host an event. It will also give you a map, the map of the United States that will have all 1,600 events. We're closing in on 1,600 right now. We'll probably end up around 1,650 or so. All 1,600 events will be on that map, so that you can find something that's close to you, and it will tell you precisely where to go and what time the event is and what type of event it is, whether talking about the legislation, the various pieces of legislation, whether they're going to be doing sign waving over an overpass, whether they're going to be doing a march, a rally, all kinds of activations are going to be going on. But goodtroubleliveon.org is the home that you go to find out all of that information wherever you are in the country and all through Chicago.
well, this gives us like a tiny example. Like, if you're not going to be downtown,
Hmm.
what are some of the things that you can do? Like,
Certainly, some of the things you could do is that we'll have all kinds of signs that are available. You can take over a corner. You can be on one of your corners now with several of your friends or family members or whatever. The concept is to get out and to get involved and to have your voice heard, and let folks know that you are involved and that this is an issue that you have identified, that you're not quiet on it. So whether you're on a corner in downtown Chicago, whether you're somewhere in Indiana, wherever you are, it's important for that to be heard, that you're objecting to what's going on. Santita, the phrase that we like to use is that, we're now pushing for democracy, and democracy is what it's all about. And we always say that a closed mouth doesn't get fed. And so what we want people to do is to open the mouth of democracy and demand to be fed, demand to have your rights protected, demand to have that right and not have your Medicare cut. And we want to be certain because that every activation, every demonstration, every act that we all 1,600 plus that are going to be going on, we're going to be pushing people to be certain that they're registering voters and that folks know that they are or are not registered to vote and that their vote has been challenged. So that's one of the things that's going to be going on as well. Because this is not a one-off, right? It's not July 17th and now I can sit back. This is get active, get involved, stay involved. we started out, one of the first events that came about with Indivisible was the Hands Off rally. And that was a nationwide activation as well. That was followed by No Kings. And for No Kings, both Barbara and I were in Chicago with you, Santita, during that period of time. This is yet another step along that road, because if you participated in Hands Off, if you participated in No Kings, this is the next step, right? This is the Good Trouble Lives On piece to that. And the concept is we've got to be constant in raising our voice. We can't say it one time and then say, okay, I've done my piece. That's not how it happens. It happens by us being constant, by us being consistent, by us being in the street, by us being on the sidewalk, by us being certain that, when 2026 rolls around and it's election time, that we are continuing with that same amount of interest, that same amount of concern, that same desire to be certain that Congress is serving the interests of the people. That's what this is all about.
Well, let me put this forward, because one of the challenges that I saw with No Kings, the commentator said, where are the black people? And it's not that black folks don't have any criticisms. We have many, 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 many. And yet, somehow or another, it's not resonating as deeply as in, we do need to be out. And so what can move black people to be even more involved and more prominent in this movement? Because that's always that is the challenge, unless you have someone who's articulating these populist issues from our perspective. Because even when you talk about democracy, that kind of goes, black people have never experienced that in the United States. Right. So it's like democracy is like, that rings hollow with me, because, Dr. King, what did you say at the base of the Lincoln Monument? I have come here for you to make good on a check that has bounced. And I refuse to believe that the vaults of opportunity to this country are empty. I know you're not bankrupt. Every promise you have delivered to me, you have defaulted. And that was 62 years ago. That has not changed. And now you have 2 or 3 generations later, these kids are saying that. So how do we resonate with them? Because they don't want to hear parties. They're done with that. They're over that. They know that everything is changing, Daryl. And they're wondering what they now want the country to look very, very different. And they will tell you that. They do not trust the system. There's Mom Donnie is 33, 34. There are some people behind him who passed him. Because he is the future. They can say whatever they want to say. He is the future. He is. And as is the Trump team. They're the future too. Because unlike, the Democrats, the Democrats, unlike the people on the right, the Democrats have pushed down their base. Republicans have lifted them up. They tried to guide them, direct them the way they want them to be, but they're not taking them out. So how do you have a message? The Latino community or the Spanish speaking community, they have immigration. That's one of their issues. And they will come out for that. Black people are like, we've been here 400 plus years. We have every promise you have reneged. I don't trust this. And when you talk to me about democracy, my arms are folded, because I've never known that. You criminalize blackness. And post-Civil War, I heard Noam Chomsky in an interview. He said what was interesting about the post-Civil War period was the criminalization of black people. He said if you really look at the laws, and if you look at the prison system, now you have a new slavery. Kevin Gray wrote about it before the new Jim Crow. came out. He wrote about it maybe 20 years before that. May he rest in peace. And that's where we are. And so if so it's like there are issues that DEI, but even that's middle class, upper class. There's some basic things that we are lacking, and people are not talking to. And so I'm trying to find out, as much as we need this National Day of Action, I'm trying to figure out how to get us to buy in. Right.
Hmm. Yeah, one of the things that we've done, with this particular National Day of Action is that, we're seeing it as that day of action, unlike the No Kings, unlike the hands off. Uh, those that are heading up this National Day of Action are Black organizations. And I'm not even saying Black and brown, they're Black organizations. Transformative Justice Coalition, Black Voters Matters, the National Urban League, Georgia Coalition for the People's Agenda. What we're doing is we're trying to center certain racial justice aspects to this, so that it's the call out for the African American community to now coming back and involved, come back into the circle. For a period of time following the election, they were saying that, and I think that, the talk was that the Black women said, we've done our part. We told you what was going to happen. We came to the polls and you turned your back and you went the other way. You go and you deserve whatever you get now. I'm going to sit down and rest and take a time off. You have at it. Well, what we know is that when issues start to come our way, the folks that are going to get hit the hardest generally are the African American community. Whatever the issue is, we're going to get hit the hardest on those issues. And so we don't really have the luxury of taking time off or anything along those lines. And so we've got to get in this battle. We've got to continue to fight. So we're going to center racial justice issues, as a lot of what you're going to hear being spoken about at the Daily Plaza and across the country as well. But we're also going to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and about the banned books and all of these issues that were there. One of the interesting things, a lot of the times, I think we focus on the problems that we're experiencing, and we don't necessarily celebrate some of the accomplishments when we achieve them. The U.S. Naval Academy, you may remember this, the U.S. Naval Academy banned over 300 books off of their shelves, demanded that they come off the shelf, that they not have access to the midshipmen that were there taking class. What people don't know, however, is that we now have had that policy reversed, and the books are back on the shelf. And it was because the communities came out and were pushing back against the exclusion and the removal of all these books that were banned from the U.S. Naval Academy. So one of the victories that we have is that we were able to push back and have that policy reversed. But people don't know about it because it's not being talked about. So that's one of the things that we've got to be certain we're lifting up. It's easy to always point to everything that's negative and say, these are all the negative things. But it's important also that we lift up our accomplishments and our victories, and that we understand that victory can still be had. So that's part of what this National Day of Action is all about. There's a lot that's coming at us as African Americans. There's a lot that's coming at us, as a democracy. But one thing we cannot do is that we can't just sit.
Hold on one moment, because there's so much static, and I don't understand it. I don't have it on my end, but I
Yeah,
have
it's not on my end.
And I'm hearing it. It's coming across, and I just want to see if there's something we can do to remedy that. Okay. Okay, let's keep on going.
Okay, so a large part of what we've got to be certain happens is that we lift up our successes so people are aware. When we're working with young voters and Gen Zs, one of the things I always tell folks is, you've got to notice and take notice of the successes, because once you see success is possible, it gives you the empathy, it gives you the will to fight on through difficult challenges. So we've got to see these successes as we're gaining them. But it's also important that we raise our voices and be heard.
Well, as we raise our voices, I'm wondering, um, like with Texas, I think that it's important for us to look at what's happening there, because this was such, there's so many things that are happening at one time. You see the impact of the Doge cuts immediately
Mhm.
there. When you have people who need immediate assistance from FEMA, there's no one there to answer the phones now.
Right.
Nobody. So when you had a, a rate of money, of people being able to access the FEMA emergency funds well north of 90%, now it's down to 15%. People need that money. They need it. They need it. They need it. Um, and then you have, a governor who they're sitting on more than $32 billion in excess money in Texas. An alarm system would have cost $1 million in that area.
Mhm.
The governor refused to sign off on $1 million to set up an alarm system. That Camp Mystic, where they had all of those young people in
Yeah.
children, they were removed from the list that would have them protected by insurance. So it's just, and mind you, we are all a step away from a disaster. You never know where the disaster is going to come from. And one of the things that you know about a disaster, Daryl Jones, is that when they tell you to evacuate, you have to have money to be able to evacuate. See, those are the things that happened to us in Katrina, to Black people in Katrina. When they were telling people to clear out, because I was working at Rainbow Push at the time, people were calling and they said, I have no place to go. And I have no place, I have no money that can get me there. I mean, so, I mean, our needs are, well, and I think we have to be very careful as we even describe these wins. We have to be very sensitive to who's winning, you
Mhm.
know, um, because rising tides should lift all boats. But many of our people don't feel that that's happening. And I think we have to address that. Um, because so the question is, when you're talking about DEI and people losing their jobs, no one talks about filling janitorial jobs and these frontline worker jobs. I don't see any fights on DEI there. We automatically fill those jobs, okay? Until they maybe decide that they won't, until things get so desperate for other people. So that's why I'm asking, just like, what are some of the other issues? I mean, because now, like, for example, I was watching Michelle Singletary, who's a tremendous columnist, financial uh, uh, literacy and financial education columnist at the Washington Post. In fact, she's syndicated. And she was saying, these cuts, uh, these grant and loan cuts, the children who are going to school in the fall, they can go in the fall. She said, oh, but next year it will be very different. So maybe you should not have turned down that state scholarship, because you're not going to be able to get the money to go to the Ivies or to leave state. It's just that. I mean, and we're not even talking to our young people about another educational avenue, which is vocational, right? So
Mhm.
what can we do to really amp up that involvement? I mean, like, what are some of the issues that you think might resonate with the child who's not college bound for one reason or another? Um, with someone who's really trying to make it from day to day.
Mhm. Uh, well, absolutely. I mean, if you're someone who's trying to make it from day to day, and you're relying, let's say, you're a single parent, and you're relying on housing vouchers that to help you with your housing, right? What this bill that has just passed Congress has done is it has cut that in half by 50%. So it's going to make it even more difficult. And what we've got to understand and appreciate is that what needs to happen is that we need more people in Congress that are representative of the interests of the people that are being cut, that are feeling the cut. And that's, a part of what we're trying to push out is the registration and the getting people to be involved and to understand that your representative may be voting against your interests, and we need you to vote for someone that's going to vote for your interests. If we're talking about college students, particularly African American college students, many of which are reliant on Pell Grants and things along those lines, they're being reduced. The student loan forgiveness, is now being erased. The forgiveness period is ending, so that people now are going to be forced to renew the payments on those student loans, regardless of their financial situation and what they're going through at this point in time. All of those are issues that are germane to immediately to people and our real life. I mean, when we talk about cutting SNAP, right, cutting the food programs that are going to be there for children, that's real. It doesn't get any more real than the ability to put food on your table. That's what's being cut. It doesn't get any more real than a woman that wants to have reproductive health care, but Planned Parenthood now is being barred by federal legislation from being able to operate and offer that low-cost care for that woman to have access. That's as real as it gets, because it doesn't just impact the woman when we're dealing with Planned Parenthood. It also impacts the guy too. The man too is going to have obligations with regards to the new mouth that's coming to the world. All of these are real issues that are affecting us. If you're a federal worker and your job is being a reduction in force and being cut, and you're not being treating fairly, as most of them have not been. These are impacts that are immediate. It's an immediate impact not just on the federal worker, but when you go to call for assistance and no one answers the phone because there's been a reduction in force, so that no one's there to answer your phone, right? You go to call because there's a natural disaster and you're calling FEMA and your call's not getting answered. It's going to an answer machine because no one's there to be able to answer the call and to deal with this with the immediate emergency situation because they've been cut. Folks immediately oftentimes think, okay, it sounds good, government is bloated, let's cut the spending, let's save some money because we can save money because we don't need all these services. There's too many federal government employees anyway. We say that all the way until we ask the question, which program do you want? Are you ready to get away with? Are you ready to stop with Social Security? Are you ready to stop with Medicare? Are you ready to stop? What are you ready to stop with? What are you ready to get rid of that is providing a service for you? And when it's placed in that context, I think people have more of a realization of what it's all about. Folks in Texas right now, you're going to hear them being very upset with the cuts that are with FEMA. The folks that are in North Carolina experiencing the floods, you're going to hear them very upset about their inability to get in contact with people because the cuts have taken place and the phones aren't being answered and they can't access the $750 that's being offered to them. They can't access it. Yeah, it's being offered, but what does it mean for someone to offer you food and you don't have the ability to get to where the food is that you need to eat? Nothing. That's where the government steps in. Those are the government services that have we've got to show the nexus, the tie to for people, so they get it, so they understand what these cuts actually mean. And so, if we're not in the street complaining about it, that means we're complacent. And what is the old line, the August Wilson play, "Raising a Son"? Shut up and eat your eggs, right? Just eat what's been served to you. You're lucky to have what I'm giving you. That's not where we are as a society right now. Where we are right now is we are demanding that our services not be cut. We are demanding that our government work for us, not simply make cuts and make it more difficult for us, but provide us the services that we've labored for. That's what this is all about, Santita.
Well, I mean, and to be honest with you, everybody, look, they're closing hospitals as we speak. In Illinois, they are
Absolutely.
closing. They've closed at least four. Planned Parenthood is where women get cancer screenings. Cancer screenings. Wait a minute. There's been a lot of focus on reproductive health. And with women, unlike men, our reproductive health is tied to our overall health. But the fact is, breast cancer screenings, ovarian cancer screenings. I mean, play things that you cannot afford to do, um, screenings that you cannot afford to get on your own. Well, that's what Planned Parenthood does. It really, Planned Parenthood really obscures all of the services that they provide. And the closings of these hospitals, for those people who are in Chicago, and this happens all over. Daryl, the Inglewood neighborhood, the life expectancy is barely 60. It's like 59 point something.
Wow.
Maybe just on the north side of the city, in an affluent area, a white life expectancy goes up by 30 years.
Mm.
You can't have a baby on the far side of Chicago. These hospitals are closing, and the hospitals are closing their units where they're gynecological units, obstetrics and gynecology. So they've got to drive. If they can drive, they've got to get to another hospital that is in a whole different part of town, in Chicago is vast. So, I want people to understand that there is a lot that is at stake. There's a lot that you need to be that you really need to be outraged about, and outraged in a way that's creative, because this isn't a John Lewis Day, National Day of Action. He was a proponent of nonviolence.
Mhm.
That much is key. And my father has said, you cannot ride to freedom on Pharaoh's chariot. You're going to have to do this yourself, and you're going to have to pay for it yourself. So we have to make some decisions, everybody, because right now you are beginning to see, when you look at this disaster in Texas, and much is being made of the fact that I think more than 70% of that particular district where they've had the most devastation went for President Trump. I understand that, but they didn't think this was going to happen, and they certainly did not think this was going to happen to them. But that's why we have to expand our thinking, everybody, because we should not think that this would never happen to me. We should say, well, if this happens to you, this could happen to me, if you want to be selfish about it. And so let's get this right, because I don't want this to happen to anyone. How about that? So you should get into some good trouble. You do have an obligation to change a law and to demonstrate against a law that you know is unfair, that you know hurt you and other people. You must do that. And so, Daryl, when we are looking at that, and Paul, thank you. I know we've got to be static on Daryl's end. I just don't know. I think what I'm going to have to do, um, I think what we're going to have to do is probably just start going to Facebook, or no, to Zoom, and then we'll have to give you all the link that way. How about that? Oh, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see, because we've been having this issue for the past few days, but we're going to keep on going, everybody, because these are real issues that we need to talk about, and we need everyone to participate, because I repeat, Daryl, and I want to know your thoughts. It was really, really interesting watching the congressmen in both houses, in the upper house, in the U.S. Senate, and the People's House, the U.S. House of Representatives. Boy, they were being twisted like pretzels, because they
Mhm.
did not want to vote on that bill. Because, see, they've got to go home to their constituents. And if you think they were angry a couple of months ago,
Right.
you wait until these hospitals close. You wait
Mhm.
until these kids can't go to school.
Mhm.
You wait until folks who don't have jobs, or who have jobs that pay not a lot, are being pushed to pay up on these student loans. Everybody, I believe that you pay the bills that you owe. You do erase the debts that belong to you. But there's something that, Daryl, is really backwards, and it's not forward thinking, to put education, vocational and academic, so far out of reach of people. There's no way that Americans are going to survive that, Daryl.
Mhm.
I mean, and that, so I mean, it's like, Daryl, help me. If you're upset about that, you gotta get out. And you got to tell your friends to get out, or I mean, stand on those overpasses, because I love it when people do that. because it just, because then you hear the honking horns. Stand on a busy street and
Hmm.
get your friends to hold placards, because I think it's a great thing. It's almost like these pop-up stores or these flash parties. Have some flash parties around that.
Hmm. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Santita. One of the things that John Lewis certainly is famous for saying is that if you see something that's wrong, if you see something that's not right, that's morally incomprehensible, say something. You have an obligation to do something. Don't sit in silence and let it happen. Say something. Get up out of your seat. Get on your feet. Do something, say something. And that's what July 17th is all about. It's about people getting up and saying something. When we talk about all the issues that are going on, and we talk about, people being in food deserts, right? People that are going to have their SNAP benefits cut, people that are going to have their Medicaid, all this stuff cut. Contrast that with what we have happening right now with Zoran Mandami in New York City, where he's talking about having a grocery store that's going to be city owned, so people have easy access and the prices will be kept down low. He's talking about making public transportation free, right, so people can have access to it. That's a large part of that, speaking up and saying something about injustices that you see, the problems that you see. That's what we want people to get connected with. You don't have to be part of a political party. Be part of your church, but get involved in the issues that are germane to you, that are important to you, that are affecting your income. And folks always say, and we hear it all the time, Santita, that folks are saying, the ancestors, fought and died for these rights, and this is why you should have to do it. And that's all very true, and it's all very accurate. But here's what I add. Particularly for the Gen Zs that are out there, and they're saying, why should I do this? It's their future that we're fighting for. But for them, what they need to understand, and I tell them all the time, Gen Alpha is watching you. How you react, Gen Z, to this issue that you're walking into, that's waiting for you. Gen Alpha is watching because they're thinking, I'm getting ready to learn how to deal with calamity. I'm getting ready to learn how to deal with rough issues by watching the generation that's in front of me right now. So they're watching you right now. What action are you going to take? And that runs all the way down the line, because whether you're 8 or 80, you can take some type of action, whether it's just calling your member of Congress or getting out on the sidewalk or getting out in one of the protests, getting out in one of the actions. There's something you can do on July 17th and moving forward to help stop this what I'm calling this attack that's on the democracies, this attack that's on the people, this attack that's on the services throughout this country, Cynthia.
I mean, and it is an attack, and we are under attack. Anytime you have a president who is threatening a citizen, I'm not saying a naturalized citizen, which there is a citizen is a citizen is a citizen. But Rosie O'Donnell was born in the United States. And these are the things that you have to stand up for and talk about on Thursday. He's threatening to revoke her citizenship. And believe me, I don't think he would have thrown that out there if somebody had not thought that through. If somebody didn't see a little bit of daylight, because they are arresting people, and they're not just. I saw something on TikTok. A young black man said, "Black people, when you're out, carry your IDs," and I would extend that to all people of color, because the fact is, you go. I lived in New York City for years. People think that you're some of everything. People walk
Yep.
up to you and speak all kinds of different languages and whatnot. We all look like we're from everywhere, because we are. And I'm here to tell you, he said, do not go outside without your ID, because these police are coming up to you, and many of them are up. You don't know who they are, because now you've got people who are who are acting like they're the police,
Right.
and so we don't know what they're doing. I mean, it's just a very uncertain and really, really distressing time. And all of these are the things that you need to get out and really, what did you say? Get into some good trouble,
Mm-hmm.
because you're already in trouble. Hello.
And Santita, I want to add to what you just indicated when you're talking about particularly the ICE agents that are out there that are approaching people for no reason. They're approaching people because they look Latino or are Latino and they think they may be undocumented, and they're approaching them and they're grabbing them and they're coming for them. And to add to that, Santita, they're wearing masks. The ICE folks are wearing masks, right, to conceal their identity. So you have no idea, whether it's a legitimate person or an illegitimate person that's coming up to you, or a representative or not really a representative that's of the Immigration Customs Enforcement that's coming up and engaging with you. So those are really, really, crucial pieces that are out there. The other piece that's there is this, and we're in a real deep legal discussion about it at this point, because once you're on the soil of the United States, the Constitution pertains to you, and the rights of that Constitution pertain to you. Regardless of whether you're documented or undocumented, those rights pertain to you. In the United States, you can't just walk up as a police officer and grab somebody and demand to see their ID. You can't just walk up because you're a police officer and grab somebody and say, tell me who you are. Where do you live? No, you don't have that right. The Constitution blocks that right. I mean, unless they believe that the person is committing a crime, they need to leave the person alone, and the person can go ahead and walk away and walk their own way. That's what we're seeing happen, that's being affronted all across this country right now with these ICE agents, is that they're grabbing people at Home Depot, grabbing people wherever they are, and they're demanding information that they're not entitled to get as a police officer, as an ICE police officer. Those are some of the issues that are here. And what we're seeing happen is this, because so long as people are silent when they're grabbing what they call the low-hanging fruit, no one, perhaps, doesn't think too much of them, they're probably not this, they're not that, blah, blah, blah. What you're going to see happen is what we're seeing happen right now with Rosie O'Donnell, right? Because you're opening the door. You're opening the door. When you start saying it's okay to deport Abrego Garcia, you're opening the door to say it's okay to deport anyone that's in custody in the United States that we decide we need to send abroad, send them to South Sudan, send them to wherever. You're opening that door. That's what this is all about. Shut the door now. That's what we're about, Santita.
It's open. It's open.
It's open.
It's open. It's open. It's open. And don't think that all of these people all over the political spectrum have been playing this game with us. Now we have someone who's honest about it. Anytime you go to the Capitol, most of the monuments, most of the statues in the U.S. Capitol are statues to traitors. They're to Southern heroes. And that is tolerated by both parties. The first Black person to be in Statuary Hall is Rosa Parks. That is something that my brother, Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., pushed for. He could not get a Black sponsor in the U.S. Senate. He went to Obama first. He said, this would be a great thing for you. He said, I think that might be a little dicey. He got John Kerry. He was the sponsor. So we have to stand up now. Look, I'm not mad. He had all these advisors talking to him and blah, blah, blah. But we are in a really, really difficult position, and not just Black people. Everybody. Black people are the canaries in the mine. We let you know what's coming. So very quickly, of course, on Tuesday, you will be on WOL, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. You and Barbara Arnwine have your show. How can we get involved in this event? And of course, you'll be back on before the week is out so that we can get people involved in this.
Absolutely. Yeah, the best way to get involved is to go to goodtroubleliveson.org, goodtroubleliveson.org. When you go to that website, you'll be able to go to the map of the United States that will have all 1,600 activations, all 1,600 events that are going on all over the country. You can click on your state, click on your area, and it'll tell you what's happening closest to you. If for any reason you're unable or you're unwilling to, you don't want to go out and be amongst people for whatever reason, you also have the ability to watch the national broadcast as we do it live from Chicago, Illinois, on July the 17th at the Daily Plaza, 50 West Washington Street in Chicago.
Everybody knows Daily Plaza.
Everybody knows Daily. Okay, everybody knows Daily Plaza. All right, but that's where we'll be. and you'll be able to watch it live on the Transformative Justice Coalition's YouTube channel, as well as it's going to be streamed on, the DFAD, as well as Public Citizen and Black Voters Matter. All these will be available to you, folks. We encourage you to go to goodtroubleliveson.org, find that event near you, and get involved.
Of course, the chair of the Transformative Justice Coalition, Attorney Daryl Jones, hopping over in the next hour, everybody. Right now, we're going to talk about Rosie O'Donnell. That's right. President Trump has threatened to revoke her citizenship. They've been going at it for some time, but let's talk about that. Help on over. Next hour of the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, coming up next.